Welcome back, everybody, with another episode of Ask the Right Questions with Brandon Chisholm. And I hope everybody had a great weekend. I know I did. I had an event happen this weekend that I'm really excited about. Some things happened in my family, and that's all I'll go into that. Some very positive things happened in my family. And I'm very, excited about those things and very pleased to be a part of that. So, like I said, I had a great weekend. I hope all of you all had a great weekend as well. And I know I took a week off. Last week I sort of lost some inspiration. Not inspiration to do my podcast. I'm still inspired to do that. However, I got out of my creative flow. And I think I got out of my creative flow because I was consuming too much BS on social media. Throughout the week, I normally consume different, podcasts and things like that from other influencers that I follow. Shout out to 19 Keys, brother from St. Louis, who, one of the greatest thought leaders of our generation. Shout out to EYL, Rashad, Shadi, shout out to those brothers, and Ian Dunlap, and Troy. So shout out to the EYL community. So I normally consume, many podcasts and things like that from them. And last week I just, I was on social media a lot and just some BS. So didn't post anything last week. So once I recognized why I got out of my creative flow, I had to get back into things, which is going to go into the topic that we're going to discuss today. And the topic that we're going to discuss today, it came from a book that I read. And the name of that book was called Emotional Intelligence. And let's see here. It was by an author, Daniel Goleman. It was recommended to me by a good friend of mine about a month or two ago. Got the book, read it, really enjoyed what I read, really learned some vital things about emotional intelligence and how important it is, and that versus intellectual intelligence. And it made me think, about the two, and how they, the role of each one. And I got to thinking, well, which one's more important? Emotional intelligence or intellectual intelligence? So, without further ado, we'll get right into the topic. And the right question for today is simply, which of the two will take you further in life? Emotional intelligence or intellectual intelligence? So before you answer that question, just think about it for a second. And, think about, you would think, and so this was me. When I thought about it, I thought about it from a perspective of, okay, yeah, intellectual intelligence is probably more important because you have to have the ability to think and reason and things like that versus emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is like, emotional intelligence is important, but it's not as important as intellectual intelligence. So let's look at the definitions for the two. Okay? Took some notes. So what is emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence is the ability to perceive, interpret, demonstrate, control, evaluate, and use emotions to communicate with and relate to others effectively and constructively. Okay, so that's the definition of emotional intelligence. Now, what is the definition of intellectual intelligence? Intellectual intelligence is simply the general mental capability that involves the ability to reason, plan, solve problems, think abstractly, comprehend complex ideas, learn quickly, and learn from experience. So, one involves learning, and the other involves interpreting and demonstrating control over your emotions. So when I thought about the two, I thought to myself, if I had a pie, and that pie, that whole pie was 100%. Out of 100%, you got 50% EQ, 50% IQ. Okay, well, if you have a good balance of the two, that would be good, right? And after reading the book, there are many studies that are starting to come out that are displaying that emotional intelligence is actually more important than intellectual intelligence. Okay, so if you had a pie, more than 50% of that pie you would want to develop in emotional intelligence versus the intellectual intelligence. And now when I thought about it, and that's being proven too, when I thought about it, I thought about a quote that says, "No one man is an island." Now we're going to use, of course, man, not meaning man literally, but figuratively mankind, both man and woman. Okay, nobody's an island. Now what does that mean? So that simply means we all need help in life to get ahead, to get further in life, to do things that we need to accomplish. We all need those things to happen in life. And, gotta pause 1 second, pause for the cause. Need to plug my laptop in before it goes out. Hold on. All right, I'm back. Okay. Technical difficulties squared away. Got the laptop plugged in. So, back to the discussion. So when I thought about emotional intelligence, like I said, think about it from a pie perspective. Okay, you actually need more emotional intelligence than you do intellectual intelligence. Reason being is that no one man is an island, and to get ahead in life, we all need each other. And it's important to have emotional intelligence because to effectively communicate with the other party, as the definition described, we have to understand our own emotions in the moment, be able to relate those emotions to the other party in a very intellectual manner, okay, in a very effective electrical, which you can think of electrical, but in a very effective manner from an intelligence perspective, okay? Because we need help from people. Everybody needs help. Nobody has achieved great feats in life or great things in life or just achieved anything in life by themselves solely. Now, yes, we, complete tasks and things of that nature by ourselves at times. However, at some point in time, someone had to either give you information that could help you achieve said task, or you had to get help from somebody to achieve said task. So to say that emotional intelligence is important is really to say that, you can't really say that. So when I thought about that, like I said, for me, a light bulb went off. And it wasn't in the sense that I didn't think emotional intelligence was important, because I did believe, even before I read the book, emotional intelligence was important. I just didn't realize how important it was in terms of, advancing, yourself in life. And, that's something that they talked about in the book, that, to advance in life, and they use different examples. One example was used where, a really smart individual, really smart guy, he was in a relationship with a woman, and the relationship failed because he couldn't connect with his lady, in different social settings, and, he didn't, like, his empathy was low, and just things like that. So I want to go over a few key points about emotional intelligence. And there's 5 things that with emotional intelligence you want to develop yourself in. And I believe these are very important things, because it's one thing to communicate with a person, and I think many people, I've had this conversation with many people. However, when people, you ask people about relationships, okay? Oh, what's important in a relationship? What keeps a relationship strong? And talking about intimate relationships. And the number one, word that, most people use is communication. And when you think about it, that's just one part of it. Communicating is simply talking. Anybody can talk, okay? A parrot can talk. A parrot can communicate. But can you communicate? Can you talk effectively? Can you, in the moments, in different moments, can you relate, words to another person, in different emotional states? Are you using the correct inflection? Are you using, the appropriate words? Are you able to break down concepts in a different, fashion? Are you, there's many things about it. So they go hand in hand, communicating effectively, using your emotions to communicate effectively. More importantly, though, the other half of that effectiveness is, understanding the opposite person's emotions, being able to interpret how they're feeling, in the conversation, and then navigating that. That's a big part of communication. That's a big part of emotional intelligence, EQ. Because to communicate effectively, to communicate emotions effectively, you have to be able to navigate that. And there are 5 key things that I want to cover that, I believe are important, definitely with emotional intelligence. So the first of those is so I'll go over all 5, okay? You have self-awareness, okay? self-management, social awareness, relationship management, and then empathy versus sympathy. And I believe that empathy versus sympathy, self-awareness are probably the two most vital things that we all could use more practice in. Being able to empathize, and understand feelings, of another individual. I think that's being lost, especially in the conversations that are going on right now, with the whole anti-Semitic talk. There's a low level of, in my opinion, there's a low level of unwillingness to understand. Okay. And especially with the individuals that have been, brought up with that lately, Kanye West, Kyrie Irving, and now Dave Chappelle from his thing. I think Dave Chappelle knew what he was doing, so I'm not even counting Dave Chappelle. Just thinking about Kyrie Irving and Kanye West. So, those two, empathy versus sympathy, and self-awareness. Okay. Now, I'll define each one of those and kind of just talk to those and point to, how to apply those from an emotional intelligence standpoint. So, self-awareness. Okay. What is self-awareness? Recognize your own emotions and how they affect your thoughts and behavior. So, that's key. That's something that I think we can all use practice in. I know it's something that I've practiced personally, over the past few years, doing some, self-checks, from my divorce. A lot of people don't know I used to be married from 2015, 2017, took some time off from just relationships in general to really evaluate and do some self-awareness checks on myself to really understand, who I was at that time and how I could become better. So self-awareness is key. You have to be able to recognize how words and actions, more particular words, how words affect you emotionally. And then when you're affected by those words emotionally, being able to recognize that you're being affected, okay, that your emotions are being hijacked in those moments. That's a part of self-awareness, okay? Being able to recognize how your thoughts are affecting your behavior, and then regulate those things, de-escalating yourself from those things. Especially in conflict or in disagreements, being able to, are you practicing breathing techniques? Are you aware of your body temperature rising when you are angry? Okay. Being mindful to not overtalk someone. Being mindful to, just not be in a state where you are, when you're talking to someone, you're talking to get your point across, or you're listening in a sense to get your point across. Part of self-awareness is also listening, being a good listener. Did you hear what you thought you heard? Okay, so self-awareness is key. Next one, self-management. Okay, self-management. You must be able to control impulsive feelings and behaviors, manage your emotions in healthy ways, take initiative, follow through on commitments, and adapt to changing circumstances. When you think about the word emotion, it's basically energy and emotion. So words generate energy in the body, And when that energy is generated, that energy has to be dispersed in some form or fashion, either through communication, through actions, some way, somehow. You have to be able to, you know, put that energy in motion. So, from an emotional perspective, controlling your impulsive feelings, controlling your temper. When you're, perfect example, I was in the car the other day. Somebody kind of cut me off a bit, and part of me started to get irritated, and I did kind of be like, "Come on, what are you doing? Like, what's going on?" But I realized in that moment, like, you know what? Calm down. It's not that bad. Nobody was hurt. Nobody, we didn't hit each other's car. Simple misunderstanding. Bring yourself down. So, understanding, self-management, controlling your impulsive feelings and behaviors. Because an impulsive behavior would have been to just continue to get more, aggressive, or, in that moment to continue to get, more angry, or angrier, I should say, in that moment. But I didn't. And, from a man's perspective, men are, that's, to me, that's a good trait. That's a great trait for a man to have, is to be able to have the ability to regulate his emotions. That is a sign of true strength, in my opinion. So yeah, there's self-management. Okay, now you have social awareness. Now, with social awareness, that is, okay, you can understand the emotions, needs, and concerns of other people, pick up on those emotional cues, feel comfortable socially, and recognize the power dynamics in a group or organization. That's very vital. Can you go into a room and emote in different conversations? Can you go to one conversation and have a different level of emotion, and then come out of that conversation and then go into another conversation, switching gears and relating to and understanding the emotions of those individuals in the conversation? That's very vital, especially in diffusing conflict. Okay, are you coming from a place of understanding? And I believe social awareness, any type of awareness, you have to have some level of understanding of self, understanding your own habits, understanding what makes you angry, your buttons, what makes you sad, what makes you happy, all of those things, understanding your range of emotions and the words and phrases and events and actions that, trigger said emotions, whether it's happy, sad, glad, whatever. Having the self-awareness and the social awareness to, navigate in a social environment your own emotions and the emotions of others. Next, you have relationship management. Now, this one I think is vital as well. This one's very important. So, definition. This one would be, how to develop and maintain good relationships, communicate clearly. There's that word again, or phrase, communicate clearly, inspire and influence others, work well in a team, and manage conflict. So with that one, relationship management is vital. It goes back to what we were talking about. No one man is an island. And really, even, really big with this discussion is simply emotional intelligence having a higher priority or higher precedence in terms of importance in navigating through life, in achieving things in life. Being able to communicate clearly and, more importantly, effectively. I'm very big on communicating effectively. Just because you say a bunch of words doesn't mean you communicated effectively. It just simply means you're just talking. Communicating effectively is using the right words, phrases, tone of voice. In addition to that, and using your intellect to speak clearly to another party. That's very vital. Okay, that's very vital in inspiring and influencing other people. The sign of a great leader is the ability to influence others, the ability to inspire others. Okay, and that inspiration and influence comes from, are you communicating effectively and clearly? Are you using your intellect coupled with your emotional intelligence to do both, to communicate in a way to where you get your point across in the most effective and clear manner? And then last but not least, empathy versus sympathy. So now empathy versus sympathy is simply the ability to understand and share the feelings of another, having shared the same or similar experience. Sympathy denotes feelings of pity and sorrow for someone else's misfortune. So, both of those are very vital, especially with empathy, understanding the feelings of another person. And like I talked about before, are we all, in times where there's, in times where people don't see eye to eye on things, is there a level of understanding that's taking place? Are you listening to respond, or are you listening to understand? And that's huge in communication. Listening skills. Okay, how well are you listening? First, you have, and I'm very big on this now. Before, years ago, I used to listen to respond. That was my thing, because I thought I was right all the time. I'm Sagittarius. Just disclaimer. Sometimes Sagittarius think we're right all the time. We're not. But, when I was younger, I used to always think I was right all the time, or a majority of the time. And, I had some relationships that, where the woman would tell me like, hey, listen, things like that. So fast forward, got to the point where I was having a conversation with a pastor of mine from my old church I used to attend. And I never forget this. I was talking to him about a young lady I was dating at the time. And this was like, what year was this? This had to be like 2008, 2009. But when I was talking to him, I never forget, he asked me to describe something. I described it to him, and I started to talk again while he was talking. And he said, you know what, man, you don't listen. You don't listen very well. And it cut me deep, because I thought I listened very well. But, that was just my ego being hurt at the time. And we all know how the ego is. The ego is there to protect you. And however, in this day and age, we don't need our egos to be at such a alert and high level, because we're not endangered like that anymore. So a lot of times the ego can get in the way. But when he told me that, I was like, over time I just reflected on that and thought, you know what, I don't listen very well. So over time I practiced, just, shutting up more and listening more to understand from a curiosity perspective. So going back to empathy versus sympathy, empathy being the ability to understand and share feelings. When we come from that place of understanding, that's where we are listening, or where we come from a place of empathy, that's where we listen to understand first of how another person feels versus responding to how they feel. And that's very vital in any relationship, whether it's a business relationship, whether it's a intimate relationship, whether it's an associate relationship. You have to first listen with the intent to understand another person's feelings. Then you have sympathy, which is, simply basically sharing in the feelings of another person, and another person's misfortune, more specifically. Having sympathy for somebody else's mishap or loss, whether it's a family member loss, whether the person lost their job, in moments like that, those aren't the moments where we should be on a high horse telling the person like, oh, well, you should have did this and you should have did that. That's not that time. There's a time and a place for everything. However, in the moment, you first have to connect with the person and you have to just sympathize with them. And that's another vital element of emotional intelligence. So what do we cover? We cover 5 things. We cover self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship management, and empathy versus sympathy. Practicing in those 5 areas, will help you grow from an emotional intelligence perspective. Intellectual intelligence, that speaks for itself. That's pretty much, everybody's been through school at some point in time. And, many people are going further from high school and college to higher education. And that's what, intellectual intelligence is. School gives you the intellectual side of things, how to think through problems, how to solve problems. And I would beg to differ that today's schooling system needs to change because it's very outdated, antiquated. So, but, IQ speaks for itself. Basically, do you have the ability to think through problems and learn? So, they're both vital. However, emotional intelligence has a higher priority than intellectual intelligence in terms of advancing in life. You need both, but focus more on the focus more on the emotional side of things. And it's not to just say, and I'm speaking to the men now, it's not to say that you should be overly emotional. I don't believe a man should be overly emotional, A sign of strength for a man is to have the ability to regulate your emotions in moments of difficult times or moments of happy times. Whatever the moment is, you need to have the wherewithal to have some level of control over your faculty. And that's very vital. And I do believe in that, and I was taught that by my father and the men in my life. So that's it. That's all I got. I think this was a great topic to cover, and I think it'll help a lot of people, really put the two together and really understand, how, those two pieces of themselves, how well they are developed, have they developed their emotional intelligence, side more than their intellectual side, or have they developed their intellectual side more than their emotional side? I would probably say for most men, we've probably developed our intellectual side more than we've developed our emotional side. So, and that's just my personal perspective. I don't have any statistics or anything to back that up. It's just based off of conversations and things that I've seen, just based off of my experiences and just things that I've seen in life. So So yeah, like I said, I do believe that will help a lot of people. And let me know your comments in the comment section below too. Like, share, subscribe, to the YouTube channel. Share this video with, people that you feel need to hear this. And then also, subscribe to the channel. And coming soon, listening to, people, feedback from different, parties and people and things like that. I believe I want to do like a live broadcast where I can invite people onto the show and we can talk, and I can just ask different questions to help people think through things, because that's really the purpose of this channel. The purpose of this channel is to ask the right questions, and I believe I can help with that. So that's it for today's topic. I hope everybody is having a blessed week so far, and look forward to talking to everybody next week. So take care, everybody. Bye-bye.